This is J. Krishnamurti's fourth public talk in Madras, 1969-70.
I suppose you don't mind the heat. I do. This is the last talk. If we may, I would like to talk about what is called meditation. It's really quite a complex problem and needs a great deal of inquiry and great perceptive sensitivity. We are going to meditate together. That is, inquire freely and therefore learn what this extraordinary thing means. This isn't a mass meditation where one leads and you all follow like a lot of sheep. Meditation is really quite arduous and a great deal of fun. I'm using the word fun in the ordinary sense, amusement, great deal of movement, great enjoyment, ecstasy, a bliss that's quite inexpressible. And we're going to, together, understand this question. There are several things involved in it. The primary thing is completely emptying the mind of everything it has known. Second, a non-directive, non-controlled energy. Then it requires the highest form of order. Order in the sense of complete ending of disorder, which is brought about by contradiction, by opposing desires, and therefore effort, which is total waste of energy. And a quality of mind that has no character. And lots more. Very hot, isn't it? I don't know how you stand it. And we must be completely set aside the idea or the practice of a method. Because really I don't know quite where to begin this thing. So complex and extraordinarily simple if you know how to look at it. So let's begin. In our religions throughout the world, the organized propagandist religions, and all of them are merely propaganda, have conditioned the mind so that there is always something beyond, and the seeking of it, the searching out through various methods, systems, practices. So the mind is always seeking, being conditioned, is always seeking. Or it is conditioned not to seek and merely to accept. Please, we are doing it together. You are not just nodding your head in agreement or disagreement. We are really penetrating into something that requires your highest intelligence and integrity. And a very serious mind. This isn't just a game that we are playing or learning few tricks of meditation. This requires enormous, frightening seriousness, earnestness. And to go into this question, one must understand not only how the mind is conditioned, but also this whole question of seeking and exploration. Seeking implies an end, a goal that the seeker will find. If he is serious enough, if he is arduous enough, if he is controlled enough, and so on, he will ultimately find it. And we have accepted that we must seek truth or God or what you like, and then we'll find it. I do not know if you have gone into the meaning of that word, seek. If you find something in your search, you must be able to recognize it. Right? You must recognize that you have found something. Recognition implies that you have already known it. Right? Otherwise, the mind can't recognize it. Recognition means to recognize which is, the mind has already experienced it, has already known it, and then it merely recognizes. That is the meaning and the significance of that word seek. I seek truth. I want to find truth. God, whatever word you like to use. That means the mind must be able not only to seek amidst this chaos, confusion, and be able to find what is true. That's implied in the word seeking. Search out. And in this process of searching out, there is time involved. The thing is there, and the seeker is here, and is proceeding towards it. And that implies time, a duration, a lapse or a distance between the seeker and the thing he seeks. And the seeker must recognize it to be true. And what he will see is according to his conditioning. Please, do watch it. We are learning together. We are exploring together. We are not seeking truth. We are exploring, investigating, examining, learning the meaning of the word seek. So there is always a gap, a time interval between the seeker and the sought. And this division as the seeker and the sought is the projection of the seeker. Therefore it has nothing whatsoever to do with truth. With whatever you like to call it. Then there is exploration, which is entirely different from seeking. Exploring, not what you want to find, not what your tendency, your characteristic, your particular experience or tendency, but exploring what actually is. The two are entirely different. Searching, seeking, and exploring. In exploring, there is no explorer. He's only watching. Watching the movement of what is going on. Not interpreting it, not judging it, not condemning it or comparing it. He's just moving with the thing that is in action. Right? So this must be very clearly understood right from the beginning. That we are exploring. Exploration means examination. Examination has no motive. You are examining. Whereas seeking has a motive. And in exploring, what is going on? All your responses come out. Your conditioned thoughts, feelings, emotions, your desires, your suppressed anxieties, and all that will come out. Which are going to prevent examination. Right? All the reactions, the conditioned responses, the motives, the fears, all those will come to the surface which will prevent examining. Right? Is that clear? So, a man who would learn about meditation must have understood the meaning of that word search and examination, exploring. You are doing it now. We are learning together, communicating together, sharing together this examination of what is meditation. Therefore, your mind is or has become extraordinarily alive to all its responses, to all its pettiness, anxieties, its shoddiness, its meanness, its violence. And if we examine through those slides, as it were, we are not capable of looking, right? So, then this question of methods, systems, practices. What is implied in all of them? Practice, systems, meditation. What do you call it? What? Method. Somebody says that there is a method of achievement, to enlightenment, to realization. And that's the word which one doesn't know what it means, self-realization. When you look at that word, it's sheer nonsense. Realize what? Realize your own anxieties, your own projections, your own visions, your own Atman which you have invented, or which you have been handed down through generations. So let's brush all these silly words aside and stick to the one or two main things. Method implies practice. Repetition, day after day, day after day. Not whether it's a good method or a bad method. We are discussing, inquiring into method. Method implies, as we said, repetition. What happens when you repeat? Any pleasure, sexual or anything, repeat. What happens? You become mechanical, which means you become dull. You started out in searching for something which you call reality, and you're caught in a method, which is you are allowing yourself to become more and more dull, mechanical. Methods, systems, practices imply all that. Again in that, there is the one who practices the method. So there is a division between the method and the person who is practicing it. So there is a division. That division is a conflict. Right? A battle between the man who is practicing the method. And he is not always living up to it. So there is a battle going on, which is a contradiction. The one who practices and the method. There is a contradiction. And contradiction means division. Therefore effort, which is waste of energy. So we can now dispose completely all methods. Are you doing it? Or are you keeping in reserve so that you can go back home and practice? But if you see the truth of it, how ridiculous it is. How any practice destroys sensitivity, destroys that energy with which you started to find. One can get used to anything, to ugliness, to beauty, to squalor, and become more and more accustomed to it. Right? You know, if you have a picture in your room, you look at it. First few days, you say to yourself, how lovely that is. You see the depth, the color, the proportion, the shadow, the light, and the beauty of it. And you keep on looking at it. At the end of the week, you have forgotten it. You look at it and pass by. So, method brings about this insensitivity to what is going on, actually. To what is going on inwardly as well as outwardly. Because you are concerned entirely with the system practicing this method and reaching some God knows what. And that man has done for I don't know how many millions of years. And a Westerner comes to this country and falls into the pit, into that trap. And there are all those who are offering these traps. And they call it meditation. So, if you see that, and this is very important, please do realize the importance of this, that any method, any habit, any routine, any form of maintaining a repetitive mechanism destroys your initial inquiry, initial energy, which you need enormously to go on. Right? So if you see that, you are finished with it. Forever. So, what has happened? So the mind, rejecting a method, because it's understood what it means, is now also rejecting the method of memory. Right? Because you may have had an experience which has left a mark, a memory, and that memory and the thought of that remembrance demands more of that. So you fall into the trap of this mechanical demand for more experience. Right? You're getting it? Therefore, that's another trap. And why does the mind demand for more experience? Experience of transcendental or God knows what else. Why? Have you inquired into it? Why human beings throughout the world want or crave this extraordinary experience which the saints, the yogis, the sannyasis, the religious people promise? Why? We are learning together. The speaker is not telling you. The word experience means to go out, to fulfill, to finish, to go through. But we never go through an experience. There is always a residue of it, which is the memory of it. And the memory of a past experience prevents the understanding not of the new experience, but the understanding of the whole structure of experience. You're following all this? Are we becoming too intellectual? Or too verbal? Too complicated? I don't think we are. Because this is what man wants. We are examining man, what he wants, what he craves after. Therefore, it is not a very complex problem. We are just looking at it. We are learning together. And when we look at this question of experience, in that there must be also memory, recognition. If you don't recognize an experience, it's not an experience. Therefore, you've already known it. Therefore, a mind that is living in the past can never see anything new. Right? So we abolish entirely method system. We have understood seeking and exploring and the demand for experience. Because our lives are shoddy, empty, meaningless. Either we give it an intellectual significance, a ugly meaning or a profound meaning, or we are bored with life, living. And you should be bored with living, what your lives are. And so you say, being bored, insufficient, you want something much more beautiful than this. All that is implied in experience, which means that living in itself has no meaning whatsoever, and you want something beyond it. One has to find truth in living, not beyond it. And if there is understanding of living, you will go, there is no limit. Then, as we were saying, emptying the mind of everything that's known. And a mind that has never felt pain, fear, has never been hurt, which means a mind that's completely innocent. Now we're going to go into all that. You know, the whole idea of control. Thought wanders away and you want to control it. We are going to explore the meaning of control. Why you need control at all. Now this is a question that will, unless it is properly understood, is a dangerous thing. We are asking, why should there be any control over the body, over thought, over one's emotions, over one's appetites? Why? Why should there be any control, any holding it, suppressing it? What is the difference between intelligence and control? One has an appetite of various kinds. And you say, I must suppress or yield to them. In yielding to them, you find out the troubles that brings. Physically, psychologically, or psychosomatically, you find yielding to any appetite, sexual, any sensory appetite, and yielding to it brings its own misery. And you say, knowing the result, which is pain, you say, I must control it. Right? So you say, the appetite is stronger than the pain it may bring. Right? Or the pleasure it may bring. So you say, the appetite being stronger, it must be held, shaped according to a pattern. Right? You are following all this? According to the norm, to the pattern which society has set, or religions have made out, sanctions. So there is the origin of control. That is, I'm angry and it brings pain, anxiety, all kinds of things, and I say, I must not be angry. I must control it. Please do it as we are talking, watch it. In that is involved the controller and the thing controlled. And the controller has stored up the memory and the pleasure of pain and says, I must not do this, knowing it will bring pain or pleasure. If it is pleasure, of course, he'll yield to it more and more. But if it is pain, he wants to control it. And so the battle is on between the controller and the thing controlled. Controllable, rather. So there is battle. So there is conflict. A dual life, which is a life, a contradiction. Therefore, the man who tries to control is a hypocrite. Right? Are you following all this? No, you won't. And you think that's very saintly to be able to control completely. That is when you sit on the tiger. See what has taken place. What tremendous waste of energy. Right? And you need tremendous energy into what we are going to inquire. And you have said, all my appetites might control to find reality. Sexual, primarily sexual. And you have laid down a pattern, a framework of what a religious man is. And that poor chap fits into that frame and is tortured for the rest of his life. And you call him a spiritual man. Do look at it, please do. So, a tortured mind can never look straight. And you need to look very clearly, without any distortion. And mind is distorted when there is any form of compulsion, imitation, conformity, control. Right? You are seeing all this. So then you will say, what am I to do with my appetites? If there is no control whatsoever, what will happen to my appetites? What will happen to your appetites is what is happening. Right? Right? What is actually is happening is you are carrying on with your appetites. And occasionally say, it is too bad, I must control it. So we come to this central issue, which is the mind, which includes the heart, the brain, and the whole physical organism, can it live without any distortion? Without any compulsion, and therefore without any effort. Right? Please put the question to yourself. This is all meditation. Don't say at the end, I have not learnt what meditation is. This is meditation. Our minds are distorted. There is no question about it. Our minds have been shaped by the culture in which we live, by the religions, by the economic structure, by the food you eat, and so on, so on. It is shaped. It is controlled. It is given a definite form. It is conditioned. And this conditioning is a distortion. Right? And a mind that sees very, a mind can only see very clearly, purely, completely innocently, only when there is no distortion. Right? Now, how is this to be done? No method, no system, no practice. How is a mind that is shaped, distorted, can it completely empty all the distortion? Right? That is, a mind can see only very clearly when there is no movement at all. Right? If I want to see you very clearly, without any distortion, any form of movement is a distortion. Therefore it must be absolutely still. Right? And what is the factor of distortion? You following all this? Our minds are distorted. And there is no question about it. Don't say, my mind isn't, I'm a Hindu. Of course you are. Or a Muslim, or a Buddhist, or a Christian, or whatever it is. You are the result of the society in which you live. You are the society. The world is you. You are not separate from the community or the world. Your mind is the mind of the other human being. You are not your mind. Your mind is the product of millions of minds. As we said the other day, the individual is the whole. Whole means healthy. And the word whole means not only healthy, but also holy. Holy. And the individual that we are now is broken up, is unhealthy, is unholy. And the individual is, as he is now, is the result of all the minds of man. That's fairly simple, you can see it. You are a Hindu, or a Muslim, or a Buddhist, or a Christian, whatever it is, because you have been told, propaganda has been shoved down your throats and minds for years, centuries. So you are conditioned. So your mind is distorted with prejudice, with anxiety, with fear, with sorrow. Now, we are asking, what is the factor of this distortion? Not how to remove it. Moment you say, How am I to make the mind straight? That is always the one who wants to make it straight and the thing that is be straightened. Therefore there is conflict, division, contradiction, effort, waste of energy. You're following all this? So what we are asking, how does this happen? How does it happen that every mind that one meets, right throughout the world, is distorted in one way or another? The scientist with his distortion, the economist with his distortion, the religious man with his, and so on, the communist, the socialist, you follow? The living human being, not the label. The living human being, what has happened? How does this come into being, this distortion? Right? Now, we're going to find out. I don't know. We're going together to inquire. And the inquiry and the discovery of what we find must be complete. Not according to you or according to me, the speaker. It must be true. Do you understand? It's not the Hindu discovering it or the Christian discovering it. But we are inquiring to find out, inquiring into this question, why this distortion has taken place. Right throughout the world. For millions of years, you understand? The ancient Egyptians had it. The Greeks, the Persians, the Romans, all down the ages. The saints with their peculiar distortions. Why? Now, how are we going to find out? Are you waiting for the speaker to explore and to tell you? Please, listen to this question. How are you going to find out? I really mean it. I don't know. I've never put this question. The speaker has never put this question to himself or to another. So how are you going to find out? How are we together going to find out? What is the primary necessity to discovery? We're coming to it. You're coming to, go on. Let's go. What is the first step? And perhaps that's the only step for understanding this question. What do you think is the first move? The capacity to look. The art of listening. To look without distortion. Which means the mind must be absolutely still without a movement. When the mind is absolutely still without a movement, there is no distortion. Right? A mind that's chattering, a mind that's controlling, a mind that's fighting in battle with itself, with another, the mind that's frightened, the mind that's seeking, wanting, caught in appetites, you follow? Moving. A mind that is in movement is the distorting factor. Got it? Because all our structure is based on control, suppression, on fear, on greed, and so on. So, a movement out of that is distortion. You've got it? Huh? This is not what the speaker sees. You have to see it. And you have to test it. Not merely say, I agree. Test it. Testing means seeing the mind in any movement of the mind born out of the past, out of its conditioning, is the distorting factor. And you have to test it. That is, become tremendously aware of this movement. Wanting, not wanting, I like you, I don't like you, we, they, I, and see that as long as there is that movement, any response to any challenge must be a distorted response. Therefore, there it is. Distortion takes place whenever there is any movement of the past, of the conditioning, and so on. Right? You and we are seeing together the same thing. Don't say afterwards, that is not so. Gita says something else in the book. So then the question arises from that, can a distorted mind be ever still? Do you understand? Can a mind that is so much in movement, chattering, can it ever be still? If it isn't still, whatever it thinks is distorted. Whatever it does is distorted, is partial, is not complete. Can the mind that is in constant movement, and we think it is necessary to be in movement, we call that living. Can that mind be completely and absolutely quiet, without any movement? No method, no system, no practice, no control. You're following all this? Because control implies distortion, the battle. Practice implies the one who practices, and so on. We know all that. So all those are gone. because they are utterly false, meaningless. So we are asking the question, can that mind, which has always been in movement, always struggling, always reaching out, always in battle between the opposite, can that mind be so utterly still and look? Right? To go into this question, not whether the mind is capable or not capable, right? Because then you will have no answer. You say, I have capacity, I have no capacity, and begins all the game again. To answer this question, you must approach it quite differently. Because it is not a positive approach. You understand? Positive in the sense, a directive, controlled direction. That's all we know. And as long as that exists, it is distorted. So we're asking, a question, how does this happen? Not the stillness of the mind, but the chattering. Why should it go on? To find out, to explore that, you have to look into the question of the observer and the observed. You understand? When the observer chatters, there is no observed. You're following this? There is only the chattering. When he becomes aware of it, conscious or knows he's chattering, then he says, I must stop. So out of that is born the observer and the observed. The moment he says there must not be or be, there is the observer and the observed. Who is the observer? Don't repeat, please, what you have read, or repeat somebody told you, Gita, your pet guru, or your latest bearded friend. Forget all that and find out who is the observer. When you look at a tree or your wife or at the sky, are you looking, or are you looking through the image that you have about the cloud, the tree, or your wife or husband? You have the image. The image is looking. The image has been put together by memory. Put together through various experiences. And that has become memory. Therefore, the observer is the image which a thought has put together, and through that one looks. You have your own image, and the other has his own image. And the relationship between the two images is called love, friendship, cooperation, interrelationship, and so on, between two images, which is the past. So the observer is the past. If you say it is the Atman, it is already what you have been told, and therefore the past. Therefore it's not anything new, it's already old. Now the question is from that, can the old, which is the observer, come to an end without discipline, without control, without following a method and all the rest of it? Right? Now, when you put that question, how does it happen for the observer to come completely to an end? Right? Now, what has happened to the mind that has put that question? To the mind that has put that question. Following all this? There's the mind went through all this, discarding, control, method, all that we said I forgot, doesn't matter. When one has gone through all that, exploring all that, the search, the exploration, all that, what has happened to the mind? The mind has emptied itself of all the past. You're following what? The mind has become highly sensitive. And it cannot be sensitive, there is the burden of the past. And the burden of the past is the observer. It is only the mind that has gone through all this. You can do it with a single minute. I'll show you presently that, if one has time. It's only the mind that has understood all this that can put the question. And when it puts the question, it has no answer, because there is no answer. Because the mind has become highly sensitive and therefore supremely intelligent. And intelligence has no answer. It is in itself is the answer. You've understood this? So the observer has no place, because intelligence is supreme. So then, the mind is no longer seeking, no longer wanting higher experiences, is not capable of control. See the beauty of it, sir. It doesn't control. Because it is intelligent. Why should there be control? Because we don't see what the implications of that control, what control means. Discipline, suppression, imitation, conformity, conflict, which are all factors of distortion. When you see the structure and the nature of control, see it, then the mind is intelligent. And an intelligent mind cannot have control. It is operating. It's working. Therefore, in the very activity of intelligence, the dual state disappears. You get it? So all this is meditation. It's like a cloud that begins on a hilltop with a few little clouds. And as it moves, it covers the whole sky, the valley, the mountains, the rivers, the human beings, the earth. It covers everything. That is meditation. Because meditation is the concern of whole of living, not just one part of living. Then only can the mind, which is so absolutely still, without any movement, not the duration of that moment, because that moment has no duration, because it's not of time. Because time exists only when there's the observer who experiences that silence and says, I wish I could have more of it. Then again there begins. So that moment of absolute stillness, immobility, because it is of no time, it has no future or past. Therefore, that absolute motionless immobility is beyond all thought. And that moment is, because it is timeless, is endless. Now all this is meditation. And if this is not understood completely, then whatever meditations you do is a form of self-hypnosis. You can be caught in any vision, and that vision is the projection of your own demands. The Christian sees Christ because he's brought up in that. He's conditioned in that. And the Buddhist and the Hindu, with all his innumerable gods, he has his own particular little god. So, a mind that is free of any distortion is really the true religious mind. Not the mind that goes to the temple, not the mind that reads the sacred books, not the mind that repeats rituals, however beautiful they are, not the mind that's filled with images imposed upon it or self-created images. That is not a religious mind. The religious mind is this mind that began with a cloud and covers the whole earth. And in the covering of it, in the understanding of it, there comes this extraordinary sense of absolute mathematical stillness, which is really the explosion of energy. then action, the living, is not separate from learning. And in this there is great beauty. For after all, love is that, isn't it? Compassion, passion for everything. When there is love, there is no observer. There is no duality, the you I love and you who love me. There is only love, though it may be loving one or the thousand. There is only love. And then when there is love, then you can do no wrong. Do what you will. But without it we are trying to do everything. Go to the moon, marvelous scientists, great technologists, technicians, the absurd saints. We do everything and therefore everything goes wrong. Because we have no love. And love can only come when there is no observer. That means when the mind is not divided in itself as the one observing and the observed. There is only then that quality of love. You know, when you have that, that is the supreme.